Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this session on poetry reading and writing, focusing on the work of Sufi poets from West Africa. Just to give a session overview, we're going to read poems by Uthman Dan Fodio, Nana Asma'u, Amadou, Bamba, and Ibrahim Niasse. First, we'll read a poem by one of these poets, and then there'll be 10 to 15 minutes to write your own work inspired by the poem. And then we'll have a few minutes where you can share your work with other participants if you want to. You don't have to share your work, but if you would like to, then you can read it out loud or post it in the chat if you prefer. This session is not the place for perfectionism. So the goal is to get your pen flowing. And to do that, you need to set your inner critic aside and just write a draft poem. You can always edit it later to improve it if you wish to work on it further. So I'm going to start just with an introduction to a poetic form called the takhmis. So this is a popular poetic form in West African poetry, which you can use in your own compositions today if you'd like to. A takhmis, or a pentastich, is a popular poetic form in West Africa where a poet writes a new poem incorporating a famous poem inspired by its theme and poetic style and form. In a takhmis, for every line of the original poem, 3 hemistitches are added for a total of 5 hemistitches per stanza. You may notice that the word takhmis comes from the Arabic word for the number 5, khamsa. So we're going to have an example of one here. Al-Fazazi was a Cordoban poet who died in 1230, and who wrote a set of 20 praise poems on the Prophet ﷺ, known as the Ishriniya. A takhmis, or pentastich, was composed by Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn al-Muhib from the Western Sahara, using Al-Fazazi's original collection of poems as its base, and this takhmis has gained great popularity in West Africa, being taught and recited at special occasions and being widely known and appreciated. So, how Al-Fazazi's original poem was incorporated into other poets' compositions. The first line of Al-Fazazi's Ishriniya is, "The most worthy of the servants of God in nobility and eminence is a prophet possessing the highest place in paradise as his abode." Ibn al-Muhib then incorporated these lines into his own poem, adding 3 hemistitches to Al-Fazazi's first line to create the first stanza of his own poem. He wrote a stanza for each of Al-Fazazi's original lines. So, my 2 dear friends, turn aside at Muhasib and dismount, and do not wish to go elsewhere than his khayf. Honor it as a residence sought as a dwelling by the most worthy of the servants of God in nobility and eminence, a prophet possessing the highest place in paradise as his abode. So those 2 lines that are bolded are Al-Fazazi's original lines. That was his first line of his poem. The Senegalese Tijani poet and leader Omar Saidou Tal, who died in 1864, then wrote a ta'shir on Al-Fazazi's original poem called Safinat Sa'ada, creating a decastich of 10 half-lines, with 8 extra half-lines for each line of the original poem by Al-Fazazi, creating a poem of over 3,000 lines. So you'll notice the word ta'shir is also from the Arabic word for 10, which is ashra. So this is Omar Tal's poem, and again we've got the original lines of Al-Fazazi bolded. So, exalted is the praised creator of the best of creation for sending him among us and from us, raised to the throne, the most elevated dweller of the heights, the most worthy of the servants of God in nobility and eminence, a beloved through whom God bestows and protects. Peace and blessings of the Most High be upon the most exemplary and eloquent teacher of humankind, like a full moon when the matter becomes critical. The most perfect of creation in honor and the brightest blazing light is a prophet possessing the highest place in paradise as his abode. You can read more about this ta'shir of Omar Tal in the article by Amir Said entitled Poetics of Praise, Love and Authority in Al-Hajj Omar Tal's Safinat Sa'ada li Ahl al-Du'af wa Najada. So we're now going to read poems by some important Sufi poets of West Africa and use these to inspire our own work. You can write a takhmis of their poems, incorporating some of their lines of poetry into your own work, or you can just write something on a similar theme or in a similar style. So Sheikh Uthman Dan Fodio, he lived from 1754 to 1817. He was a Fulani Sheikh of the Qadiriya Sufi path and a founder of the Sokoto Caliphate. He was a preacher and religious scholar in what is now Nigeria, who was a prolific writer and poet. He wrote over 100 books and composed poems in Arabic, Fulfulde, and Hausa. So this is a poem by him. Is there a way for me to travel swiftly towards Taiba to visit the grave of the Hashimi Muhammad, as his fragrance spreads within its precincts and pilgrims come together towards Muhammad? I was left behind, a well of tears flowing out of longing for this prophet Muhammad. I swear by the most merciful, I have no virtue that does not contain love of the prophet Muhammad. I speak of the affliction of longing for him when it is clear there is no joy for me without visiting my master. I almost flew with longing to his grave. There is no flavor in life for me without Muhammad. The resplendent sun, crown of guidance and sea of bounty, there is no good except in following Muhammad. He is a downpour whose blessing spreads to all creatures. Indeed, all of God's creation is below Muhammad. Had I traveled to Taiba, I would have attained my utmost desire, covered in the dust of the sandals of Muhammad. This is actually just the beginning of his poem. It's actually a very long poem. So I'm going to leave that up on the screen, and we're going to have 15 minutes to write. So that we'll come back together at 25 past, inshallah. Okay, have fun writing. Okay, so we're moving on to Nana Asma'u, who was Uthman Dan Fodio's daughter. She lived from 1793 to 1864. She wrote poetry in Arabic, Fulfulde, and Hausa, and she was raised in a scholarly environment that valued the education of women alongside that of men, and which was part of a more widespread tradition of Muslim female scholars in West Africa. So this is a poem by Nana Asma'u, which is for her friend when she passed away. Oh, my eyes, cry freely for my beloved friend, solace to my sorrow and companion to my loneliness. Shed tears freely for the loss of Aisha, dearest of my beloved ones, most faithful friend. I extol her courage and modesty, faith, character, and contentment, her remembrance of God, litanies, patience, and virtue, and her recitation of Quran. What a beloved friend! Do you not know that there is nothing equal to true friendship when it is firm? No child or sibling can console me, no bright home or collected possessions. Because of this, my heart has become shrouded in confusion, suffering sigh upon sigh. In truth, it is no sin to mourn and elegize, for Abu Sufyan elegized the Prophet when he died. I cry over her with tears, asking for Allah's mercy upon her, with longing and affection and true friendship. The Prophet did not forbid this. He only forbade screaming and wailing. I pray to God to allay her fear and that the most merciful grants her the best reward. Okay, so we will come together at 6:50. Just have 10 minutes because we still have another 2 poems to get through. So you can either do a takhmis on that or you can just use it as inspiration, inshallah. Okay, I think we'll move on then. So the next section, Amadou Bamba, who lived from 1853 to 1927. Amadou Bamba was the founder of the Muridiya Sufi path based in the city of Touba, which he also founded in present-day Senegal. He was a spiritual leader, religious scholar, writer, and poet who also led a pacifist resistance movement against French colonialism. And we've got a poem by him here. This is part of a poem. It's quite a long poem. A lot of the poems they wrote were actually quite long. Virtues are his. So this is, again, a poem about the Prophet. A lot of the West African poetry is about the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this comes about, well, it comes a little way into the poem. Virtues are his, miracles are his, and wonders are his unending. A gazelle speaks, a lizard greets, a bird tweets praise like one discerning. Milk flows freely, rain pours abundantly, a well with no rope bountifully overflowing. A tree trunk yearns for him, a wolf tells of him, and then turns to shepherding. He attained glory physically in reality on the night journey without exaggerating. To the Lord glory be, who made our beloved to travel freely by night, his proximity attaining. By night he journeyed, once purified, and continued among the prophets, rejoicing. The trustworthy one journeyed with the trustworthy angel upon the trustworthy steed, to the purest heights ascending. So this poem actually has 3 rhymes in each line, and then an end rhyme that goes through the whole thing. I've tried to sort of approximate that in the translation, but obviously you don't have to keep to that. So this is verses 113 to 120 from Amadou Bamba's praise poem, Mawahib al-Nafi fi Mada'ih al-Shafi. Okay, so you can, again, either write a takhmis or just write something inspired by that. And we will come together again at 5 past. Okay, I think we'll move on then, inshallah. Okay, Ibrahim Niasse, who lived from 1900 until 1975. He was a Senegalese Tijani sheikh. He was active on a national and political level, serving as the vice president of the Muslim World League. His branch of the Tijani Sufi path became known as the Tijaniya Ibrahimiya, or the Faida, meaning flood, and spread to other parts of West Africa and beyond, gaining millions of followers globally. Okay, this is his poem. It's actually part of his poem. It's a very long one. So I'm going to read it, and then we'll just have 10 or 15 minutes to write something, and then we'll finish up at that point. Okay, love of the Hashimi filled my heart, and I could not sleep in Paris. I was untroubled, though, those around me by slumber overcome, because any beauty in existence disappears entirely should the beloved appear at any time. Lights, colors, dance, and song remind those of insight of the giving one. Castles of kings, quarry, bridge, and banner, he in whom prophethood was sealed recall. The days passing have not made me forget, living in Taiba, where sovereigns are as servants. The days passing have not made me forget, my time greeting Ahmed, tears streaming down. The days passing have not made me forget the mihrab of Ahmed and his majestic, luminous minbar. The days passing have not made me forget my time sitting with mosque attendants, thoughts silenced. I enter the gardens of paradise before dying. Through the grace of my beloved, the ultimate blessing. I say with modesty and humility, and I can't quite see what comes after that, sorry. O messenger of God, a heedless servant bearing burdens turns only to you for aid. No servant with sins like mine has come as a pilgrim to your shrine through the centuries and nations. My hair has gone grey, even more disgrace. How terrible is disobedience with greying hair. How terrible is the sinner, protected and blessed, who commits a kind of sin, even if it be minor. If the days were to carry what the servant does, they would be completely darkened by sin and iniquity. O Lord, forgive me and guide the heart of he who loves the one you love, the chosen of all nations. Through him, guide the peoples of your creation, raising the banner of Islam and destroying idolatry. Increase him in honored knowledge and bring him before the chosen one, conveying greetings of peace to him. Peace be upon the messenger Muhammad, peace be upon Taha, peace be upon the giving one. Peace be upon the effacer of misguidance, bearing glad tidings. Peace be upon the guide by whom rains are poured forth. So we will come together again at 25 past, inshallah. Okay, well, that's it for today. So, alhamdulillah, thank you for coming and for sharing your lovely poems. And inshallah, we'll meet again soon.